All right, everyone, come on in. It's time to do this. It's the end of an era today. Well, today's the last day of an era, I suppose, and then tomorrow is the end. So come on in and let's talk about it. Let's get running. Let's talk about Trump. Trump, Trump, Trump. We'll see what we can cover there. Let me actually put on my Periscope so I can see your comments on there. And I'm sorry, I usually fuss and fiddle a little bit in the beginning to let people get into the room. So I'll turn that down so I'm not listening to that. This way I can kind of check out your comments. But come on in, let's get started. So today this is it, end of the road. Tomorrow I think Trump is actually leaving today, going down to Mar-a-Lago, and it won't be in D.C. Tomorrow. And been an amazing run, I've got to say. I mean, in some ways, leaving after one term might make Trump an even bigger legend. First thing is that he actually set an agenda. I mean, there were some muddled parts of Trump, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure if he did his own postmortem, he would if he made it public, he'd criticize himself and say, okay, I could have done this better, could have done that better. But overall, really amazing run. Did some fantastic things for the country and sort of refocused what government really should be about. I mean, wasn't perfect by any stretch, but certainly more in the direction of where things should be. And right now, okay, let me give you. I'm going to talk today. I'm going to talk a little bit about stuff that's happened in the past, conversations that I've had, and how they reflect on the future. In fact, I think I'm going to do a whole show on that. But I'm going to start with this Trump thing. So 11 years ago now, did a rally here in San Francisco. First time running against Pelosi, and was getting a lot of media attention. Ron Paul was kind enough to come out and campaign for me. He held a big rally. It was on Labor Day, and so there aren't as many people in town, but people came in from a bunch of other places. We had like 1,300 people in front of City Hall, and 4 speakers, and I was third, and Ron was fourth. Ron said kind things about me. But there was, I forget the name of the rally, but the subtitle was "Ending Washington's War on Us." See, because Washington knows war. It started out being just wars, normal wars, depending, fighting overseas or internal, unfortunately, occasionally once. But then they got into other wars: the war on poverty, war on drugs, war on this, war on that. So that's what Washington knows. They know war. And so the point that I was making with that subtitle the secondary title was that Washington's war is really kind of directed at us. And it was saying what a lot of people are saying now is that you have these coastal elites that sort of lord over and mock people in the middle. First time, by the way, that we've really seen that. And that was sort of really burgeoning at that time and actually became a real thing. Trump changed all that. He brought the focus of the government back to being the servant of the people, not the people to be the servant of the government. And that's what Washington is really fighting against. That's what that's what really irritated them about Trump. And so in that regard, it has been an historic changing thing, or it might have been a last gasp and a last grasp at fixing America. But it was clearly amazing because he changed the focus, and what he accomplished I've been saying this in other podcasts and my tweets, that his legacy is going to cast a shadow immediately over the Biden administration. Joe Biden, people now know that they can get what they want from their government. That's the gift that Trump gave them. And so there's that. And it's not just going to be Biden. It's going to be whoever was elected in 24 and 28. People are going to remember what Trump did. He turned the focus back on them. And for all of his faults and flaws, he was really focused on that. And in that regard, a really good man, a really good guy. and I think some issues, but really had had people's interests at heart. If you go back and listen to him back in the '80s, he was talking about the same stuff back then. He really cared about the country and doing things the right way. So, give you a quick 2 Rand Paul stories. One, probably shouldn't divulge this, but whatever. 2013, I get a call. It's evident to go to Washington that that Rand is thinking about running for president. So he's got sort of liberty leaders, people who had been supporting his dad, had been organizing, had volunteers and all that sort of stuff. So he brought these people in from. Hold on a second. Someone's saying that they're getting blocked. Oh, interesting. So I'm sorry, somebody's getting blocked from this video. I don't know if you're having any issues, let me know. So anyway, so we go to this thing in Washington. It's a group of people meeting, and Rand is talking about, what he's gonna do and how we're gonna win, and all of a sudden it hit me. Keep in mind now I'm a veteran of 2 presidential campaigns. I worked on his dad, volunteered in his dad's campaigns twice in like 4 states, and it just occurred to me, let's say you become president. What is it that you can actually do? What can you accomplish? What is it possible? What can you actually do? Because when you think about it, the president has sort of limited. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. People are buzzing me. It's all kinds of stuff is going on. What can the president actually accomplish? Because what you've got in Washington, and going back to that war on us, you've got this Washington, D.C. that is like, it got its own interests. And if you come in and try and, rock the boat, buck the trend, do any of that kind of stuff, you're going to have real problems. And so that was the first thing. And, Rand actually never really gave me a great answer to that. I'm happy to tell that to his face next time I see him. But never really gave me a great answer on that. And I think it was because he knew what I was getting at, that it's really, really hard for a president. Because even though the president, for example, controls foreign policy, look at what Trump tried to, end the war in Afghanistan, which is his prerogative. To withdraw the troops, the AUMF gave the president the authority to do that. The AUMF dating all the way back to 2001. And look at all the pushback that he got. And he's leaving with 2,500 troops left. But even that was like a difficult thing to do. So, and I think Trump didn't really understand that. I think he kind of knew, but he really didn't act fast enough, and he really didn't understand the landscape and who the players were. I think he could have understood them better. What tells me that he didn't know the landscape and what he was up against is that he hired John Bolton. John Bolton is a swamp rat and a neocon warmonger. Trump's instinct is not to go to war. Trump's instinct is to end wars. Hiring him tells me that Trump didn't understand what he was getting into there in D.C. The fact that he got rid of him was a good thing, but better late than never. But he should have never hired him in the first place. So that's going to be the challenge moving forward, is getting a grip on what Steve Bannon calls the bureaucratic state. Some people call it the deep state. Really reining in the intelligence agencies. That's sort of where it all starts. And a brutal, job to do. Really rough. You have to almost it'd be a really tricky thing to do that. I have some thoughts about ways to do it, but I wouldn't divulge those. So I would only advise someone who's in a serious position to actually, address the issue. But you would have to, get after that. So there's that. And then let me fast forward into 2016 and another conversation I had with Rand. And so this is the summer of 16, and Rand dropped out, I think, in like February or something, just before New Hampshire. In 2016, he was back in San Francisco. We were doing some fundraising, had dinner, sitting across from him almost like this distance. And I said to him at that point, you got to support Trump. And he was shocked because, I'm known as a pretty ideological libertarian. He thought I'd be like supporting Gary Johnson or something. I was like, no, not like Gary, but no, listen, the thing is, I was telling him that, Trump, listen, first of all, Trump has tweeted that he would audit the Fed. something. By the way, there's an administrative state that needs to be addressed. But okay, fine. But the other thing was, I told him, Trump's instincts are anti-war. He doesn't want to go to these wars, and he is going to be our guy in foreign policy. And sure enough, that's exactly how he behaved. And I talked to Rand last year about this, and he said it was conversations like that got him to sort of move towards going with Trump. And to tell you what, made me sleep better at night that somebody like Rand was in Trump's ear. See, Trump likes to get both points of view. If you ever watch The Apprentice, that's the way he does stuff. And so he was getting the Lindsey Graham point of view, but he needed the Rand Paul point of view, and his instinct was with Rand, and so he, as a result, he didn't really start any new wars, and that's amazing in and of itself. And I'm also the vice chairman of the thing called the Republican Liberty Caucus, and we discussed. In fact, I made the motion to endorse Trump, and the RLC declined, and I understand why. People were opposed to it. But one of my fellow board members regretted it in our last meeting last month, because when you think about it, Trump has been the most libertarian president. He said, Trump's been the most libertarian president in my lifetime. Now, that's not saying a lot, because the bar is pretty low. There haven't been a lot of really super libertarian presidents, but Trump's been right up there. I mean, been really bad on spending, and when the pandemic hit, made the debt, the deficit and the debt go, explode. So that was bad. But tried to grow the economy, was for free market, loosen things up. When you think about it, right now we're dealing with a different environment. I'm not so sure you could say this is Biden, but Trump criticized the press, but he never went after them, and he never used the tools of the state to go after his opponents. Are you so sure that Joe Biden is gonna avoid that? Well, I'm not so sure. And there's a lot of calls right now for that. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But he did not go after his enemies in the state. And the vicious people might say, hey, maybe he should have. Okay. Well, I don't know, but I think his record is going to cast an enormous shadow and give hope to a lot of people who are being oppressed by Washington D.C. You talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Sandy Cortez, as she was known in college, was talking the other day about how the voters in the South are suppressed by white supremacists or something like that. Okay, yeah. Listen, who's being suppressed and who's being oppressed? The people of the United States are being oppressed by the Sandy Ocasio-Cortezes in Washington D.C. and the whole apparatus of Washington D.C. That's what's going on. So we really need to go back. I mean, my whole point of being a Republican is to actually reduce the size of government, because there's an inverse relationship to the quality of your life and the size of your government. So in any event, that's what we're working on. So just a quick thing. If you get a chance, let's move on to the next topic, the Clinton-Pelosi podcast. There was a funny podcast yesterday with, I guess, Hillary Clinton, because she's so dynamic and interesting, has decided to create a podcast. There it is. Who's going to listen to that? Okay. So, but she has, Nancy Pelosi on. And when I look at this picture, all I can think of is her dentures rattling. That's really all you got. It's just those sort of like those chomper-like things, like, and that's all that I can think of, is because not much would come out of it, except for the fact that they keep bringing up Russia. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is still, pushing Russia conspiracy theories. They're talking about how Donald Trump was doing, was instigating the Capitol, the Capitol S episode last week at the behest of Vladimir Putin, at the direction of Vladimir Putin. I mean, it's so insane. It's fantastic. But Twitter, a couple of videos from Project Veritas come out, And where both Jack Dorsey and Vijay, who's I forget her title, but she's come some Orwellian title at Twitter, where they were saying, "Listen, we're gonna go after conspiracy theorists." Well, I don't know, man. I mean, Mueller spent like what was it, 25, $30 million to determine that Trump had nothing to do with Russia and that Russia had nothing to do with Trump, and these guys are still selling this stuff. I mean, when you get a certain title and if you're on a certain in a certain political party, do you get away with that sort of stuff? So anyway, listen. I mean, here's the thing: we got to just kind of deal with it. These guys, they want to the social media companies, they want to suppress us and hold back our point of view. I mean, do they really think this is a long-term strategy that's gonna work? That there's not going to be any reaction to that? It's a nightmare. That building, but they're going to be the ones who build it. And by the way, that brings me into the third topic, which is this Winslow video. Did you guys see this yesterday? Can you put that up, Mario? So in this one, this guy, what is he saying here? That Trump is going to have an army that's going to attack the United States, basically, once he leaves office. You want to talk about inciting violence? I mean, this is insane. Trump is going to be golfing. No one's rising up against at the behest of Donald Trump, rising up to attack the United States. These people are crazy. Think about what they did. They insulted the military members by saying that they couldn't. Joe Biden couldn't trust them. Scott Adams was making this point. That was a big mistake, a really nasty thing to do for the commander-in-chief to say he doesn't trust the military. Okay, Trump never did that. So the question is that a threat or is it a warning? I mean, what is it? What is Winslow trying to get across? I'm going to kind of limit this. I've got to run today, but go ahead and take a look at that. Go to the Twitter site of Twitter handle @Don Winslow and look at that video, and then make your own comments about it. It's insanity. But I mean, these guys are drunk with power right now. They want to create they're creating all these threats. Like this is like a normal thing, and this is how we're going to live. Okay, listen. Here's the thing. I've been serious about this, and there's definitely serious issues going on right now. But I'm not going to sweat it. I don't think you should either, because I think what we should do is have fun. Just have fun. Listen, I made a video years ago, 10 years ago. You can see it. It's up on. Just type in, go to YouTube and type in John Dennis, Nancy Pelosi, Wicked Witch of the West. It was a video that was going viral. It was all over every place back then, and it's funny because I ran into Pelosi the only time I've ever met her in some pub in D.C. Just happened to be there when she was there. It was the weirdest thing. I'll tell that story another time. But I mentioned that I said, "Hey, thanks for being a good sport about the video." And she gave me this look like she didn't know anything about it. And I swear to God, two days later, I get a notice from YouTube that the video had been blocked. There was a copyright infringement complaint. And make a long story short, clearly Pelosi, had the thing blocked. She doesn't like to be made fun of. None of these guys like to be made fun of. You think Joe Biden likes to be made fun of? Look how angry this freaking guy gets when he gets challenged on anything. I mean, you got to remember something. Joe Biden, for those of you who don't remember, I was aware and an adult in 1988 when Joe Biden was running for president the first time. He was a terrible candidate in his prime, a low intellect guy back then. And so now he's like some old fart. And you think he likes to be, with cognitive decline? That's another thing that, typically triggers anger. So you think he likes to be made fun of? No, none of them do. So listen, make fun of them. Have a great time. They hate to be mocked, so mock them. And if they're going to try, they're going to push this too far. I can see it already. They're drunk with power. They're pushing way too hard. They think they've got all of the, everything buttoned up. The media. There are some scary things going on. They're talking about giving a path to citizenship to 11 million immigrants, illegal immigrants. By the way, that number is more like probably 25, 30 million, who are presumably going to be Democrat voters. They're going to give statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico, get 2 more senators. They're going to pack the Supreme Court, add 4 to 8 new Supreme Court justices. All will be appointed by the Democrats. They think they think that there's not going to be a reaction to all that stuff. Okay, go to town, see what happens. I'm not encouraging, and I'm certainly not suggesting that there's going to be physical violence, but good, fair-minded people are going to react, and they're going to change their party affiliation. They're going to vote in different ways. And they're going to be protests, and it's going to be uncomfortable. The direction and the agenda that they're proposing is not where the American people are. Even the people who didn't like Donald Trump, they are not with this agenda. If in fact Joe Biden won this election, I have my doubts. Let's just put it that way. If in fact he did win, then it wasn't because they didn't like Donald Trump's agenda. The people didn't like Donald Trump's agenda. It's because they didn't like his personality, because he's too bombastic. Okay, fine. Go ahead and go in that direction. It's not gonna play well for the Democrats. Okay. So let's see. Let's look at some of your votes, some of your comments. Trump is wrong. Let's see. Blue Burrows are there. They're definitely socialists. Yeah, Trump won that. Listen, we'll find out one day what happened. Well, that, and here's the other thing too. For those of you who think, okay, they've got the vote rigged, listen, people will react to that. If in fact it's true that they've actually figured out a way to manipulate votes permanently, then there'll be a reaction to that as well. Let me look over here on Facebook here. Some comments. Okay. All right, folks. Well, listen, that's it. I will see you again on Thursday at 11 a.m. on Pacific Standard Time, as it is right now. And be safe, be fun, have a great time, laugh at them, make fun of them, and enjoy your lives, because we actually know what a better America can look like, and we've actually been lucky to have Donald Trump for the last 4 years, and we'll see what happens in the future. Thanks, everybody.